Hello and welcome to the On the Knob podcast. I'm your host, Ant Kelley, standing in for regular host this week, Will Rooney. This evening I am joined by regular tipsters Henry Gibbs and Paul Martin. How are we, lads?
And enjoying this this lockdown. So give us plenty of time to study to study these novice races that we're going to touch on. So being busy.
Plenty of winners for listeners then, hopefully, Paul, with the extra study time.
There's no excuses.
Right, what we're going to do this week is we're going to do a Cheltenham preview on the Novice Hurdle races. And we'll get straight into it with the Supreme Novices Hurdle, which is the curtain raisers of the festival, which is of course won by Shishkin last year. Henry Gibbs was on big. Last year he bought me a few pints for his winnings, which he appreciated. And it looks a relatively weak race for me this year. The market leader at the moment is Appreciated. Looks like the William Mullins charge is set to run here instead of the Ballymore. Then next in the market we've got Metier and Third Time Lucky for the British. And then moving on from that we've got Ballyadam, who was quite disappointing last time out in the future champions Novice Hurdle at Leopardstown. Henry, I'll come to you first. Do you give Ballyadam a chance, or are you with the favourite here?
In regards to Ballyadam, he's probably a more backable price now at 14-1 than what he was prior to his run last time out. I'm always happy to forgive one badge run, and at the end of the day, Elliot horses weren't firing at all early over Christmas. I think Ballyadam's scope dirty as well after the run, so even more reason to forgive it. However, it wasn't a horse that I was totally convinced by prior to its run over Christmas. It just didn't jump well, and I think just because the fact it was a novice hurdler trained by Gordon Elliott, owned by Cheveley Park, that it was getting more accolades than it deserved, and it was probably only favourite because it was the only horse that was consistently running and winning a couple of decent races. I wouldn't be backing it for the Supreme on what I've seen. It is a weak Supreme. You've got Appreciated there as the market leader. It's one of them. It's probably the best horse in the race, but I've always said that I think Appreciated will be better over further, and you might just get done for a bit of speed up the hill over 2 miles. It's likely that Townend will go from the front, keep it fairly simple, and it's just trying to find the right one that might just do it for speed, because as we all know, it's certainly not the strongest of Supreme Novices hurdles. I don't think it's going to be like we've seen over the last few years, where there's plenty of winners mid-division that obviously finish mid-division in the Supreme that go on to bigger and better things the following season. There's a couple at big prices that I'd be happy to keep on side. Again, I'm not 100% sure if they're going to line up in this race, but that's part of the anti-post fun. Hopefully, a few bookmakers will go non-run and no bet soon. I know Paddy Power have, but I'm sure a few of the others will follow fairly sharpish. One of them is Magic Tricks for Gordon Elliott. Now, this is a horse that's always been thought quite a lot of by Gordon and JP McManus. It started off over bumpers in October. It was highly fancied to go in, went off 6-5 favourites, and was quite disappointing, to be fair. It finished 4th, but it just looked desperately in need of the experience. It then went to Navan at the start of December, over 2 miles on soft ground. Absolutely bolted up by 9 lengths. Looked like it really improved for its run at Punchestown back in October, and jumped slickly, and I think a strong pace over 2 miles would be perfect for him, being an ex-pointer. So that's a horse that I'd consider, especially given the connections. If it does line up, I can't see it going off at that price. So he's my number one. I'd have to give a quick shout out to Third Time Lucky as well. Another horse was in behind, Appreciated in the bumper, but ran a cracking race, to be fair, for the Skelton team. Finished 4th in the bumper. Then obviously went Novice Hurdle in the season, won its first 2, and then it did go to Cheltenham and got beat, got turned over, come 2nd, but it's quite a disappointing ride from Harry that day, and I think he'll hold his hands up, saying he just got too far behind the front runner who was away and gone, stayed on up the hill and just couldn't quite close the gap. Then put that to bed with a comfortable win at Kempton over over Christmas, and I just think with Tam Lucky, the race is going to be run to suit. He could be the one that could just have a nice turn of foot up that Cheltenham Hill. Hopefully Skelton just rides him a little bit closer this time, and he's a solid each way shout against the Fav. And Magic Tricks is my one that's a bit out there that could run a big race.
Thank you very much for that, Andy. Magic Tricks is top priced 40-1 with Bet365 at the moment, so very good each way price there. We've got,
like I said, it's one of them, and it was in the entries for the big 2.5 mile hurdle that we see at Nice on Wednesday. But it was pulled out after Dex. But I just think he hasn't really got one for the Supreme, JP, has he?
No.
He got Flint to Sacre for Henderson. He was massively disappointing. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Magic Tricks lands up on the Supreme to I just think he's a lot better than a lot of the horses ahead of him in the market. So by all means, take a shot at the 40s, and maybe when it is non-running no bet, like 20s, 25s, and that's enough insurance.
Yeah, I agree, Henry. Then we've got Third Time Lucky, obviously 16-1 and the market. That's also a backable price, each way price. Paul, we move on to you next for the Supreme. We've got Messier in the market here at 7-1. It won the Tolworth the other week. I think I've got question marks for yourself about that form. Only beat Shaken Up Harry that day. Do you give the Fry Charge a chance, or?
Say it's got a chill be there or thereabouts, but I wouldn't be backing it. I'll just come on to the first with like the week going on to about the quality of it. I'd argue with this. Can you really say it's a week renewal before the race, because the sample size you get like 2 bumpers and maybe 1 or 2 runs over hurdles. So I prefer to look at it after, because I'll give you an example. In 2011, the one that Alpha Off won. It was Alpha Off, Q Card and Sprinter Sacre, and everyone knows what's come out of that after it. But say to reinforce that, Sprinter Sacre and Alpha Off were both double-figure prices, so at the time not a lot was expected of them. So as I say, if you, I just don't think there's enough to go on to say it's a week renewal. I'd say it's one of these. I've always thought time will tell, and you can pick the bones of it out. You can pick the bones of it after the race. But on this year's renewal, I think Meteor's this sexy English challenger. There's always one. The last couple of years, you've had Angel's Breath, Irvine, Lamy Serge, always go off second or third fav and flatter to deceive. And I think that'll be the case with Meteor this year, just not sold on it at all. Appreciate it looks very solid. Worthy fav. Just say take on board what Henry said. He possibly wants further, but it does look like he's going to come here. We know he acts on the track, so he was only chinned in the bumper last year by Fernie Hollow, so we know he acts around here. Beat Ballyadam, didn't he, handsomely? Ballyadam was fav prior to it. Obviously, you can make arguments that he shouldn't have been fav in the first place, but alas, he was, and he put him in his place, so couldn't argue with. Appreciate it being favourite. The one I'm going to take a little chance on is Lekayo's article for Nicky Henderson. He's went the same path as Shishkin last year, went and entered the race in Newbury in middle of December, I think it was. Don't get me wrong, didn't beat much, but say he'd done it first time he was on the English race course, and done 8-15, was expected to win and won nicely by 7 lengths. Just say it's the same connections as last year's winner Shishkin, as I say. So I think they're plotting the same path with him. Obviously, you'd have to take on board he's only had the 1 run over here, but at 25-1, you won't have to pay a lot of money to find out. So, as I say, not a lot to go on. 25-1 though for the given the connections. That'll be where my 10 cents is going. I just want to say with that, I don't think I've seen an owner with his. Don't get me wrong, he hasn't got the biggest string, but pound for pound, it must be like, I don't think he's got a bad horse. I say album photo, Shishkin, Asperian for lunch. He's just bought that other one that's he's sent with Mullins. I forget that it's going in the say the French won the other week, and it's about second fav for the Triumph. So it's I don't know where he buys them from, but that's hit me hat off to them. It's unbelievable strength in depth.
Fully agree, Paul. At top price 25-1 on Sky Bet is Lekale's article. Anything to add on the Supreme, Henry, what Paul said, or should we move on to the Ballymore? Sorry.
Yeah, move on. I think gave listeners a couple of decent each way prices there, so hopefully get off to a nice winning start.
No problem, right? Yeah, so on to the first race of the Wednesday of the festival is the Ballymore Novices Hurdle over 2 mile 4 furlongs. Brave man's game. Do we think it's the real deal, lads? Paul Nicholls has bigged it up as the new Denman after winning the Shallow Hurdle. He's a decent sort that day in Stargate. What do you reckon, lads? Is it going to win 4-1? We come to you on that, Henry.
No.
No.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think he's got a cracking horse on his hand in Brave Man's game, but I don't know. I come over. Even he compares it to Denman. Even Denman did get beaten at Ballymore 2.5 miles. So it's one of them. I do think it's going to be a better chaser like Denman was, and it's more of an RSA contender for next year for me. And again, what's he beat over in Britain? He can only do what he's done, and it has been impressive. But I just think there's more strength and depth again to the Irish form, and at 4-1. I think a lot of shrewdies have been back in Brave Man's game over the last few weeks with this idea that the Irish horses might not be coming over, and it's probably one of the more realistic chances of a British winner, especially in the novice races. Because that Shallow Hurdle was a bit of a funny one, I thought. Like, Brave Man's game basically got his own way in front. They went very slow. Yeah, Does He Know that ran out wild about Oscar, that just didn't jump well. And then I think Stargate was just a bit flat, to be honest. I think that run at Sandown, although it was only, again, quite a slowly run race, but it wasn't. Yeah, he's had quite a lot of runs in a short period of time, Stargate, and no matter how fast you go around Sandown on heavy ground, it's going to take its toll. And I think he just needed a bit more of a break. And again, Brave Man's game was impressive, but would I be backing it at that price? No. I don't know what Paul thinks.
Yes, I think Henry must have stole my notes there, because I agree with everything he said on Brave Man's game. Not sold on him. The Shallow fell apart with Does He Know losing his mind. Skelton one fell. As you say, Stargazer looked a bit flat, and say he beat the Glancing Queen by 10 lengths. The Glancing Queen's all right, but say it's nothing to, you know what I mean, we're not going to lose our minds over it. So beating the Glancing Queen by 10 lengths, don't think it justifies it to be short of 7-2, 4-1 for the Ballymore. Say it's going to be a big field, Ballymore, because there's not much to scare them off, so it's not going to have it all his own way, so I'd be more than happy to take it on the ones I'll go with. I'll probably know me fate on Wednesday, because I'm going to have a tentative stab on Ashdale Bob for Harrington. As I say, it goes Wednesday, so I'll probably know me fate come after that. But be 2 recent winners on his 2 starts over hurdles. Reopposed to that wide receiver as well on Wednesday, so I'll fully expect him to confirm the form. If he wants to win the Ballymore, he should be taking this out on Wednesday. So there's him, and then say Bear Grylls from over the weekend. Bear Grylls, sorry. They'll have to improve on its jumping, and the trainer touched on that today, but looks like it's going to be aimed at the Ballymore, so he can sort of jumping out. He's not so much under the radar now, obviously, but then 2 at 25-1, Ashdale Bob and Bear Grylls would be my 2 tentative darts.
Thank you very much, lads. None of you fancy and the Irish contingent coming over potentially. Bob Ollinger, who's got form behind Fernie Hollow. You've got the Mullins charge as well. Is it Gaillard and Mesnil? That won by 10 lengths at the Leopardstown meeting over Christmas. Mullins, as mentioned, he wants to keep that away from Appreciated as well. So I think that more or less firms up Appreciated will go to Supreme, and Gaillard and Mesnil will come here for the Ballymore. Any takes on the Irish form?
I'd have Bob Ollinger as the most likely winner of the Ballymore, and again, it's similar to Paul. I think Wednesday is going to be a crucial race in the Ballymore hurdle market really. Whatever comes out and wins on Wednesday, because you've got Bob Ollinger, you've got Ashdale Bob, but you've also got one of Mullins's Blue Lords, which is held in high regard when it's only start. So if one of them goes on and wins quite takingly on Wednesday, they're going to be pretty much joint favourites, I presume, at Brave Man's Game. Bob Ollinger, seasonal debut, November, ran at Gowran Park in a race with Fernie Hollow and was beaten a length, but that was over 2 miles there, and I think he just got done for speed that day. Both of the horses pulled way clear, and Henry de Bramed seemed to agree, because he then stepped him up to 2.5 for his next start. Ran in a nothing race really against a load of handicappers at best. Went off 1-2-8, duly obliged by 14 lengths on the bridle, and his jumping was a little bit of a worry there, but I think that'll just get better, especially with a truly run race. And he's certainly one that I'm really excited about. I think he's going to be the one from the Irish. The Mullins one, Galard de Mesnil, I was a bit disappointed with his first run of the season. Don't get me wrong, he may well have needed the run, but he finished second, and he was well beaten by Holy Macaponi, beaten by 8 lengths that day in November. And Holy Macaponi, I don't think he was right the next start, but he ran no sort of race, so there's not much substance to that. And then again, I don't think he beat much at Leopardstown over Christmas. Gordon Elliott had Indigo Breeze there, that was heavily pointed, ran no sort of race, was tailed off, finished 8th, and then the horses in behind, Galard de Mesnil was a couple of Henry de Bromheads in Mr. Incredible and Magic Days, and they were both fairly big drifters on the day, so I'm sure they were expected to improve for the run. And then you've got like 40-1, 12 lengths back and forth, and you just think there's not much substance to that form. And with how well the Mullins horses were running over Christmas, I'd have to be seeing that again before I consider them a serious contender in the Ballymore. So it's Bob Ollinger for me. And again, I'll just give a quick mention to Magic Tricks, just in case he does go for the Ballymore, because I think it is a horse I like a lot, and he could just as easily line up here. So that's why I'd maybe just wait for the non-runner no bet and back Magic Tricks in both. So they're my two, Bob Ollinger and Magic Tricks.
Good stuff. Henry, anything to add there, Paul, on the Irish challenges? Or
no, just say compared to last year, and look at the Roll of Honour in it, I do think what you said about the Supreme being a weak event. I think this is this looks an absolute, I'd like to say stinker, but maybe not quite that strong. But certainly don't think much of the lineup this year, must admit.
No problem. We'll move on to the Dawn Run Mares Novice Hurdle then, lads, which Concertista hacked up in last year. We've got the current market leader as Galoise. She looks a real tough mare to me. She has been jumping out to a right on her first 2 runs around Fairles, but for me, I think she's got a great chance in this. Obviously, my novice hurdler to follow might line up here, Queen's Brute, but the less said about her runs so far this season, the better. Right, we'll come to you first on this one, Paul. What do you fancy here?
Yeah, so just touch on the fact, I think that Galoise, it's there because of connections in it. Say it's not much into the form. It's say the Mullins prototypical mares novice favourites. So you can set your watch to it, have the favourites every year, and I think that's the case here. Would you say though the owner, it's the same owner in as Manila Melody and Honeysuckle, so he's obviously got eye for a decent mare, so possibly as well that'll give it a bit of substance. But no, I think just on connections alone, that one. An interesting one's this Gypsy King for Peter Fahey. It'll be an unbelievable showing. Say again.
Gypsy Island, is it?
What did I say? Gypsy Island. I beg your pardon. Been watching boxing highlights, so already stuck in my head. But yeah, Gypsy Island. It's, as I say, it's going to take one hell of a performance. It's been off in the best part of 2 years. May 2019, it was last run. But if you go through it, the form's absolutely superb. It's ran 5 times. It's won 4, and the only time it was beaten was by a length, and that was by none other than Put the Kettle On. She's already won a Grade 3 But as I say, it's just the absence. If it weren't for the absence, then so I'd be all over this one. I don't know if they can try and get out at the Dublin Festival, because obviously to come straight to Cheltenham it must be nigh on impossible to win after such a long absence. So if they could get a run into before the festival, I'd be quite strong on that. But the one that'll take same connections but at a bigger price, and it's an absolute darters. There's not a lot to go on. It's My Whirlwind for Henderson and McManus. It's 20 to 1, so you don't have to it's a complete dart, but you don't have to pay a lot to find out. It's 400,000 it cost after winning its point to point impressively. If you go through the point to points, Clondor Caelan was pulled up, albeit it's come back out and it won a grade 2 up at Kelso. But then the one thing that I will throw some cold water on it is the second in that point to points, now rated 108. It had one losing run for Henderson and was shipped off to a lesser stable, and then it's ran twice in December and being beaten by 100 lengths in 2 races. So we couldn't go overboard, but just to say, a bit hypocritical because I was bemoaning connections. It's the only reason it's favourite here, but I'm just going the connections angle here. McManus, Henderson, Mares, and the price tag. So My Whirlwind goes here at 20 to 1. I'll have a little stab on that, but I'll be keeping my eye on Gypsy Island as well.
Thanks a lot for that, Paul. Going to come to you, Henry, next. Bit of a question for you, though. Do you think we're overlooking the Glancing Queen here? I remember me and you being at Aintree with Paul, coincidentally, when it won the Mares Bumper. I think we're overlooking it here for this race at best price 16 to 1 with Betfair. I think it could have a good chance. Obviously, form behind Brave Man's Game at the weekends. What's your opinion on the Glancing Queen?
Yeah, I mean, she's got form against Geldings, which is always a positive when it comes to these mares races. Obviously ran in the bumper last year, finished 8th, but it was quietly fancied that day, so I reckon he would have been slightly disappointed with that. Had a couple of runs on the flats in the summer at Kempton, didn't really do much, but it's never 1 mile 4 around Kempton. I don't think was ever going to be up the Glancing Queen Street. I was taken by his comeback run in November at Warwick. That was she ran a great race there when she won by 8 lengths, and I thought she'd run quite a big race in the Challow. I thought she had ideal conditions, soft ground, 2.5 around the galloping track like nobody, but she was another one. She was disappointing there. Again, if you fancy her, and I can't put you off at the price, she's won round Cheltenham before, and Alan King knows what he's doing with his mares, so it's certainly it's one of them. You can't put you off at 16 to 1, but it's not going to be where my money would be going. In regards to this race, it's only when I look through the novice races, Novice Hurdles earlier today, there isn't much depth to these races, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do get a couple of shock winners, because a lot of the, as Paul touched on in the Supreme, a lot of them have only ran 1 or 2 times and we don't know much about them. Again, in this mare's Novice Hurdle, the 2 probably ones that would be most fancied are already, well, She Wears It Well's 99% going to miss out. She would have been very exciting if she went here, and Gypsy Island, it's going to be near enough 700 days since we've seen her, so I don't think she'll be lining up, to be totally honest. And then most favourite, Galoise, she has been impressive, gritty, hardy performance, but again, you can't be backing her at that price at this stage. So the one I've landed on is Royal Kahala for Peter Fahey. He will be disappointed if Gypsy Island doesn't get there, but he's certainly got a lively contender in this one. Royal Kahala, she's had quite a few runs and made a debut for the season in October where she finished 5th but looked badly in need of it. Looked to blow away the cobwebs, and then she put that right in another bumper where she won that one by 12 lengths. Quite impressively at Fairyhouse. Then Peter made no mistakes in sending her straight over hurdles where she went to Fairyhouse in November, 2.5 miles soft ground, and very impressively power clear to win by 6.5 lengths. Then turn of the year, ran a fairy house, and I was really taken by a win in quite a decent little Mares Early fairy house. He had Hook Up, which is another Mullins horse, that Richie that was held in high regard, went off evens, and no excuses that day. Royal Kahala was a bit short of room, 2 out, got stuck on the fence. Kevin Sexton's had to switch it out, and she's just picked up like a really good horse. She's powered clear, went right through the line, which is always taken. And I think if this was trained by Willie, there's no question in my mind this horse would be going off favourite. And Peter Farley's no mug, he knows how to train his horses, and you get an 8-1 for Royal Kahala, and I think she is, going on the form we've seen, she should be favourite in my book. She really was really impressed with Fairy House that day, and will have no issues on the ground. And I think dropping back in trip, she'll be staying on strongly up that hill.
Good stuff, Henry. Yeah, Royal Kahala, best price on 365 at 9-1 there. I agree with you as well. Couldn't be back in Gypsy Island with stolen money. Hasn't been off track for a while. I think it will definitely need the run when it comes back. What we'll do next, lads, is we'll move on to the Triumph Hurdle. The now infamous Triumph Hurdle after Goshen's fall last year. This is the first race on the Friday, ran over 2 miles. Talk about Gary Moore's charges. We've seen Nassalam at the weekends in the Coral finale, but Shep down at Chepstow, got turned over by the David Pipe-Stained Adagio. What do we reckon, lads? Adagio's already ran in the trial for this race at Cheltenham and got turned over by was it Duffel Coat of Gordon Elliott's, and in receipt of £5 that day from Duffel Coat. Yeah. We've got Zana here as well, worthy favourite for me, at 11-4 at the moment. So I think we'll come to you again, Paul, on this one first.
Yeah, it's just reading the Salem. I thought that wasn't going to back it on Saturday. Thought the Dagio would win, and duly obliged. I was think, as I say, 1-2 egg and spoon races, whereas the Dagio had the better. It had the championship form behind Duffel Coat, who I think is really useful. So I was always happy, especially at the prices. I thought the Dagio was a cracking bet, and you could see he was the winner a couple out, about 3 from home. You could see he was just ready to pick it up and win handsomely, and so he did. I think it'll go the Triumph, but I don't think it'll be winning it. As I say, there's no reason for it to overturn the form with Duffel Coat. I don't know why he's a shorter price. Duffel Coat 14-1 and the Dagio's 9s. I can't work that one out, but don't think either of them will win it. Obviously respect the favourite, but it's the other Elliott runner, which I'm Quilirixios for Shively Park. Again, it's the problem you've got is obviously Elliott's got the fav. Is he gonna run them against each other? So it's not running no bet now. I'm with Paddy Power, so if I was going to back it, it'd be with them. But say it's 2 different owners, so say there's a chance he'll run them both. But if he does, that'd be the one I am, especially given the price on it, 12-14s. It's only had 2 starts over here. Say there's last run, literally 4 runner race, it went off at 1-16. So say you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, but it's only £1 below on the RPR ratings with the favourite. And then, as I say, triple the price. That would be the one for me. But it's, as you say, it's whether or not he's going to run both of them. Put one away for Punchestown or vice versa. But we'll see. There's that Mullins one I touched on that was bought by Joe Donnelly. That looks a strong. Mullins got a strong hand again, and he's got one as well called Humdor. That looked really good when that last ran. So it is, as always, it's shaping up to be a very. The thing with this is it looks good on paper before it, and then I think we spoke on about another podcast, like the list of them that say don't go on to achieve anything after it. Is that winner from last year being out this year?
Being in victory, no, it hasn't made its seasonal reappearance yet. No, I don't know what's going on with that. To be fair,
it's just a weird
for the season.
It's just a weird race. They look like they have the world at their feet, and then just bar Deffy DeSul and Tiger all off the top of my head. It's literally I don't know what happens to them. So back to it, it's Quilixios for Sheevley Park and Gordon Elliott. Again, won't be going overboard as say he's got the favourite, so you don't know if he's going to line them up. But if he does, but it's gone all quiet on the Western front. Can't be no updates on it since it ran in October, which is a bit of a concern. But as I say, 12, 14 to 1, I'll have a saving on with a no bet. The only certain with this one is it's going to Ireland again, because I think the English contingent are absolutely terrible by the DGO. So chalk one up for the Irish on this one.
Thanks a lot for that, Paul. I was a Nassalam fan myself before obviously Saturday's events. What's interesting for me though, Henry, I don't know what you think. I took 16s through the week for Nassalam to win this race, despite it beating absolutely nothing in its 2 first runs of Fontwell. More fool me for that though. Interestingly enough though, it hasn't moved at all in the market with the bookmakers. It's still 16s, 14s with some bookmakers. Can you forgive that run? It looked a bit of an awkward ride, jumping out to the right, pulling hard. Do you still think Nassalam's got a chance, or are you with Paul on the Irish charges?
Yeah, I'm with Paul, to be honest, Dan, in regard to Nassalam. I don't think he had meant, I think that's just how he's going to run. He is a BTEC version of Goshen from last year, really. Wins a couple of average races by half the track, and then runs keen, jumps all over the place. But he has got a big engine, and I think I just don't think Cheltenham would suit him anyway. I think he'd want more of a flat track, and I think Adagio is definitely the best out of them two going forward. In regards to the Irish, they have obviously got a strong hand. You've got Dufflecoat. He's probably the one I'd be happy to take on it. He's just never travelled in that race at Cheltenham, and I think I just think he'll get done. He'll be beat halfway round. I think he probably wants to step up and trip, and it was just the stamina that won him the race last time out. I really like the favourites down here. I think top-notch horse, really impressive on all 3 runs. But that run last time out, I think it was extra telling the fact that obviously Gordon Elliott wasn't having a great time over Christmas, but this horse still managed to go on and win. French Seal, very impressive as well. Another one near the front of the market, as Paul said, being bought by Joe Donnelly now with Willie Mullins, and that was back like its homework was going very well. That got some strong late support in the markets just as they were going off, and won as easy as he liked, really. So from an anti-post perspective, it's quite a difficult race, this, because I do love Sana here, but you wouldn't be backing it. I think it'll probably go off a similar price on the day to what it is now, because with the Triumph, you do see a few horses that come to the fort January, February, and end up near the market where we know where Zanahiyr is. I think 11 to 4 is probably a price you'll get on the day. Looking down the market, the one I've landed on from an anti-post perspective is one of Nicky Henderson's called Goodbye Stranger. He'd probably be a massive price, to be honest, but he's only ran once. And the first half of the race, it was at Newbury, just in a juvenile hurdle, and he just didn't know it. Halfway round, was whacking every fence, just didn't seem to be travelling, pushed along. And then halfway through the races, they started to pick up the speed. Goodbye Stranger seemed to think, hang on, I know what I'm doing here. And started jumping well, travelling well, and it powered on straight through the line. Another one, kept on well all the way up the running, and one going away. And I thought it was quite taken. It just reminded me of Paintland Hills. The fact that it only had one run for Henderson wasn't all that impressive, but I think it'll come on a lot for the experience. Connections, the Minears, they've won it before with Pete and Co. They know what it takes to win a race like this. I'm sure they target. They like having a good juvenile coming over from France. So I don't know what price it is, but he's probably the one that certainly we don't know how good he is yet. But I think he could. Is it 20? Yeah, that's fair enough, I think.
This Goodbye Stranger, sorry Henry, it's top price 33s with William Hill at the minute.
Yeah, that'll do for me. That's a good bet.
No problem. What we do next is we'll move on to the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, which is the second race on the Friday. Won last year by Monkfish, this year's favourite for the RSA. For me, looking at the market, it's absolutely wide open. There isn't a class horse that stands out in this for me, and the market suggests that as well. So there's nothing at all that stands out. Interestingly enough, Henry, your Novice Hurdler to follow for the season isn't a betting here. I suspect it might come here for Route to the Len, 25-1. Do you give it a chance, or?
Yeah, definitely, Ant, I think. It was disappointing. Obviously, it was impressive on his debut, where it won easy as you like. Obviously, not much in behind, and then it stepped up to grade 3 at Navan in November, and it went off even money. And it was disappointing over 2.5 mile, but I think stepping up in trip could well be the making of him. He looks like just style all day, doesn't he? That race at Limerick over Christmas. I think the only reason it was so close between him and the runner-up is because the runner-up was beaten early on and it just stayed on. Where Farik Delem was with one of Darren's hope, it was, of Robert Murphy's, and them two sort of took each other on a long way out, and obviously Farik Delem got Darren's hope beat, and then he obviously had this other challenger, the Gavin Cromwell horse, and I think that was just a case of that just stayed on from off the pace it was ridden for the place, and luckily for us punters, Farik Delem managed to hold on. I just worry about it. He does tend to jump out slightly to the right, so that is a slight worry going to Cheltenham. But again, I think he's one of the classier horses in the race, and I've sort of beaten this drum quite a bit. But another Elliott horse that wins over Christmas when the yards were really struggling for form, I think they can be upmarked and given like an extra couple of points for the performance. So he's certainly one that I'd consider, especially at a decent price, because like you said, I think he's definitely going to go here after winning over 2 miles 7 on heavy ground at Limerick. So he's one for me. He may well go to Dublin Racing Festival for the 2 miles 6 Novice Hurdle there. So might be worth getting on before that, because he could definitely run a big race. The other one I'd put up in this is another one of Gordon Elliott's, and it's Fakira. I think a few people had him on the radar for the Albert Bartlett from his performance in November at Navan. Won over 2.5 mile there, beating Fire Attack, but stayed on really strongly to the line and looked like he could have went round again basically. But it was actually a run, his run last time out there, that was appealing to me. It was in a Grade 2 Novice Hurdle where one of Paul's fancies, Ashdale Bob, won. But Fakira was beat like 4 out, to be honest. He was pushing away with Jack Kennedy. Just couldn't go the pace of Ashdale Bob and a few of the others. But he stayed on really strongly. He looked like he was going to finish a mid-division. And he just flew on and managed to get up for seconds. He was beating 6 lengths, but it just looked like, you know what, that horse just can't wait to go over 3 miles. So I presume that was over 2 mile forward. I think he'll definitely be stepping Fakira up in trip now. And he's one that'll just relish the Albert Bartlett distance. So it's 2 Gordon Elliott charges for me in the Albert Bartlett.
Yeah, we've got Fakira priced up, best price 25s with a few bookmakers, and Fruitilla also 25s. Fakira would be my selection as well. I've seen that race you were referring to there, Henry, and it looked like it needed every yard of that 2 mile forward, and it will appreciate the step up and slip. Last time out at Limerick, Fruitilla then did seem to clean up its jumping a bit, do you reckon, Henry? Jumped a bit straighter.
Yeah, definitely jump straighter, but that's going on a right-handed track. So
fair enough, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I think Gordon will be able to fix it, but it's just a niggling concern. But like I said, he's definitely got class and he'll stay all day. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the Albert Bartlett, you just want a horse that's had plenty of runs, will stay all day, and they've had 3 runs each between them already, and I'm sure they'll probably squeeze one more in before Cheltenham. So they're good enough for me. You've got like Cape Gentleman is only round 1, so I don't think he's going to be wanting a 3-mile test. He's near the front of the market. Appreciate it won't go here. I think if Ashdale Bob wins on Wednesday or runs a big race, they'll probably go Ballymore. And then you've just got Statler for Willie Mullins at the top of the market, who probably deserves to be there, judged on what we've seen. He was impressive last time out, but at the end of the day, I'd rather take my chances on a couple of 25-1 shots that I know are going to relish the test of an Albert Bartlett. So,
no, I agree, Henry. I agree fully with you there. Right, Paul, we'll come to you on this one.
Paul, signal's gone there.
After Wednesday, I expect the price to be gone. So I'd say Zanna here as a win bet. And for an each way bet, it'll be whatever Magic Tricks goes, whether that's the Supreme or the Ballymore. I'd be backing it with Paddy Power for both now.
So yeah, we've got Bob Zanna here, sorry, and Magic Tricks for Henry each way. That is 40-1 if you don't want the non-run and no bet and you want to take the gamble on where it turns up. Paul, we'll come to you next before we wrap up.
Yeah, as I say, it couldn't stress going non-run and no bet enough with this one because it's no guarantee it'll go. But if it does, I think Quilixios is a ridiculous price in the Triumph. So I would put that up at win bet 12-14-1. But again, I preface that by saying make sure you get the non-run and no bet. And then each way, just the last one we touched on there, I think Barbados Bucks in the Albert Bartlett, 25-1 for the powerhouse Paul Nicholls. It's more than fair, so say open rate, but 25s. Say if it turns up, it'll be single figures on the day. So Quilixios win bet and each way Barbados Bucks for the Albert Bartlett.
I'll tell you what, then what we'll do there is I'll stick with Bob Ollinger for my Ballymore win bet, and then we've got Magic Tricks for the Supreme, Bob Ollinger for the Ballymore, and we've got Paul's Gordon Elliott charge for the Triumph, Quilixios, and then Barbados Bucks, and then we'll see everyone in the Caribbean where we'll spend the rest of our lives.
Well, we will be in Barbados because that'll be the last leg of the year. So yeah, I'll book the flights now.
What we'll do is we'll have a lucky 15 on that. If it lands, we'll throw a bit of charity as well before we head off to Barbados. What we'll do is we'll wrap up there. Thanks a lot for listening. Please remember to follow us on Twitter, like and subscribe to us on YouTube. It's all very much appreciated. You have been listening to the On the Knob podcast. Thank you very much. See you next time.